Are you 18 to 27 and entering the workforce, or you've already been into the workforce for a couple of years? If the answer to that is yes, then you actually belong to the infamous Gen Z generation. Now, a lot of people in Guyana hear about the various generations, and sometimes you think of this as a US phenomenon because it started off with the baby boomers and then Gen X and Gen Z and millennials and all of that. But I'm just going to tell you what I've been observing with the Gen Zs entering the workforce. And one of the key things to think about is where do they come from? In many cases, I would have noticed that their grandparents would have taken care of the property, the land, the land and property where their parents might have inherited it. A lot of their parents are working class parents, so both parents having a job, and because of that as well, they've been able to either build on the land or they've been able to renovate and really upgrade the house. And they've also, over the past 20 years, added all the niceties that a house should have, all the utilities, all the subscriptions. And fortunately, for a significant block uh, of the that this new generation, 18 to 27, they've actually ended up coming into households where a lot of the bills were paid. We've also noticed that a lot of Gen Zs either get married very late, and if they do get married, they actually prefer not to have kids, which is a very interesting choice. I think it is well aligned with their idea of what freedom means. Um, and that could be a whole subject for another video in terms of the responsibility of a human being. What are the actual core responsibilities of a human being? But I think it's also important to look at how they've been behaving in the workplace. Um, in many cases, because there is no significant pressure to actually have and hold a job, because if they don't need to, in many cases, they don't have to work. We see that it's much easier for this generation to just pick up and leave and without addressing the actual issue. Um, I think that that is definitely something that can cause negative outcomes for such a person because after a while, all they've done is stacked a lot of back to back jobs, 6 months here, a year there, 2 years there, if so much. And any future employer keeps getting less and less confident that this person is actually worth investing in or will be there for any amount of time. So, all that job hopping might be interesting to someone who is currently doing that, but what it does to the future reputation is also something that I think they may not think about. So, this video is meant to give you some thought about that type of behavior and what it really does, the real impact it has on someone who has that type of behavior. What we're also seeing is that the actual ability to become a professional in a field takes time. I always like to teach the subject of moving from knowledge to skill to ability. And knowledge is easy. If you wanted to know something about swimming, if you don't know how to swim, you could go to YouTube, watch a couple of videos on swimming, and now you have knowledge about swimming. Doesn't mean that you can swim. If you actually wanted to know to swim, someone has to practice that skill with you. And you practice, you practice, you practice, and over time, you develop that competence until you know you can do it up to standard, and that's when you technically have the ability. And the problem with not actually putting in the time to develop the ability means that you do not actually become a professional. And if you think about a workplace, people have various jobs in a workplace. Every job has specific responsibilities, specific duties. And the intent of any employer is to say, hey, I want to give you this job, and what I'm expecting from you is that you deliver the result. So I provide you with money, you provide me with the result. And ideally, a professional is someone who can deliver the result. It's someone, well, I take your money and here you get the result. What we find more and more is the amount of management that has to be done with individuals, either because they were not trained at all or they haven't developed the ability at all. No one either invested the time to get them up to a level of ability, or they themselves have not given themselves the grace to develop anything into an ability. And what happens if you cannot, if you take a job because you watched a lot of YouTube videos and you learned all the right answers to say during the interview, is as soon as the requirements of the job get applied to you and you have to actually deliver the results and you cannot, then the easiest thing is to walk away. So, to all the folks in this particular generation, if I had two pieces of advice to give you, it would be, to take some time, find a mentor, someone who you believe really has your interest at heart, and have a sit down and do like a discovery session to figure out what your actual strengths are, what you really enjoy doing. And a good mentor will be able to help you think through what possible roles are that fit your strengths and what you enjoy doing. Make a decision on if you actually want to pursue that. That's step number one, because if you don't know where you're going, you've already arrived. And then, secondly, give yourself the time and grace again and patience to develop the abilities needed in that field so that as you develop in the workplace, people know what they can depend on you for. They know what abilities you have. Um, and what will also happen is that your reputation will start preceding you. The company will recognize you. The company knows what they can depend on you for. And when I say company, it could also be an organization. It doesn't need to be a company. It could be a public sector agency. It could be an NGO. They know what you bring to the table. And that reputation, that value that you add to the table, that is what you get paid for. There are too many people who want to get paid first and then see if any value will be delivered. If you're taking that route, you might wait forever to get to the place that you want to arrive at. My advice to you is always deliver value first. The money will follow because then you have evidence that you can deliver value. But if you're sitting waiting for someone to pay you and then you will deliver value, my friends, you may be waiting for a very long time. So I'm happy that you do have a cushion that your parents and grandparents most likely did not have. Make use of it, but make use of it in a way that allows you to become a very valuable citizen of this country, so that you can also get to a place where you can help the next generation. We really don't want this generation to be remembered as the one that did not step us forward, did not move us to the next level here in Guyana, and for some of you high performers as well across the world. I trust that this is helpful to you, and as usual, feel free to reach out to our organizations. We are all into people and organizational development in case you really want to accelerate your growth.